Yeah, if you could just talk to us about the amount of time and effort and commitment that it takes being a state senator. I understand that. I'm not downplaying that. Clearly, there's a time and commitment and money.
Absolutely.
If you could just talk a little bit about that difference.
Well, I think the main thing you look at is, in the state of Iowa, we have a part-time legislature, which means that from January till about May, we serve 4 or 5 days a week up in Des Moines. And then we come back to our families. For me, for instance, I live in Ottumwa, I work in Des Moines, but I drive back and forth every single day. So I get to tuck my kids in for bed and I get to spend time with them. Now beyond that, as a member of the Rules Review Committee, I have to be up there once a month to do additional work. But that's about the extent of it. So that means I can still run businesses, I can still be part of my family for the most part. And so I talked to other congressmen who served and kind of got the idea from them. I said, tell me what a typical day looks like. And they were telling me that basically on Mondays they fly out to DC and they're there until Thursdays where they fly back. But even when they're back in Iowa, they're spending the majority of their time fundraising. I mean, that's the challenge that we have with Congress, which is when you are elected every 2 years, all you're really doing is fundraising and attending events and then spending your time in DC. And that amount of work doesn't really intimidate me, but my family's very important to me. And so when your 10-year-old daughter comes to you and says, I'm really worried that you're going to be in DC all the time, and if I want to see you, I've got to go there, or do I stay here in Ottumwa with my friends and spend time with my friends? It's impactful. And it's one of those things that I had to use as a major calculation in whether or not this was the right thing to do.
Let me ask you while we're on the subject of fundraising
Sure.
then. After Citizens United, a lot more money in the system. I mean, so
absolutely.
It makes everybody raise more money.
Right.
Is there something that, I'm not saying overturn Citizens United.
Right.
I don't know what the answer is, but I mean, is your feeling now that maybe at some point we got to figure out a better way to finance campaigns than provincial fundraising? At
the state level, for me, I had a choice to make. I can go out there and I can fundraise and ask people for money, or I can spend time with my family and my business and trying to create jobs. And so for me, I for the most part could write a check. I just said, well, it's worth it to me to make this investment in the state of Iowa, so I could write a check for what I wanted to do. I didn't have to spend an over amount of time actually going out and fundraising. But for a congressional race, it's much more expensive. And as you said, you have the super PACs that are spending millions of dollars in promoting one party or the other. And the problem I've got with it is it's not really the candidates they're promoting. They're promoting an ideology of the Republican Party, the GOP, or the Democrat Party. And those have become so counterproductive, in my opinion, that it's very difficult to run a campaign, which is, let's look at the issues. I talk to people all the time, which is, we've had legislators, congressmen who go to DC, and they represent the party interest because that's where the money's coming from. And I don't see them representing their constituents anymore because these $25, $50 donations are wonderful, and I really appreciate it. And to me, it tells me that someone believes in what I do. But at the end of the day, when you start looking at the bank account totals and what you have to do to compete in a marketing standpoint, it's very difficult.
Let me ask you, and I don't know if you don't want to say, it's fine.
No, it's fine.
Did the National Party give you a fundraising target, something you realistically have to raise to make it effective?
Oh, absolutely. They gave me a total number on that. About 1.5 million is what they expect to be able to fundraise in order to be a challenger and win in the race.
And that's the minimum you need to be competitive.
Well, and you asked me what the party said, so that's what the party recommended. The challenge ends up being, for me, I've never had to worry about raising more money than my opponent, because I believe when you have good messaging and you're telling the truth to people, it makes it a lot easier. You don't have to raise as much money when you have a good, strong message and reasons behind it. People want to know not just what you believe, but why you believe it. And if you can articulate that message, you do much better.
And I'm guessing a state senate race is less than $100,000 most of the time.
Well, my re-election was much higher than that. Okay. But the first time I ran, it cost about $36,000.
Right.
So it was pretty low.
Well, that was a fairly significant challenge the second time around. I mean,
the second time around, I was a targeted race, and so when you're a targeted race, you have more, not only for state money, but national money. There was money from DC coming against me, and there was money from California coming against me, from these organizations that have basically sold out to one party or the other. I mean, so the defenders of me were also sellouts.
And so, but we're still talking we're talking hundreds of thousands, not millions of dollars.
Close to $1 million, yeah.
Does this mean we're going to see Mark Chelgren unleashed now that you don't have to worry about a national campaign?
What's funny about that is you're not the first one to ask me that question, but I really don't feel like I've ever not been unleashed.
I think so.
I mean, here's what you will see, is at this point, I've been trying to understand what the priorities are for the parties. I've been trying, when I first got elected, I read the Democrat platform and the Republican platform and tried to find out what they agreed on. And for the most part, it was like, when they went against what their platform said, I called them on it. About 90% of the time, I would call the Democrats on something that was an issue, and about 10% of the time, I'd call the Republicans on what was an issue. But I'm seeing more and more that it's both parties fundamentally broken. And I think that's probably what you'll see more of is when I see the games being played, I'm going to alert the constituents and the voters about it. I'm saying, listen, you know what, they're saying this and they're not telling you the whole story. And my goal, I guess, it would be to make sure that people understand the whole story so they can make their own decisions. I trust the voters to make decisions, but the way the marketing is set up between the parties, there are so many facts left out, it's hard to make good educated decisions.
Okay, hey, I know you're busy, so that's plenty. I appreciate it. I'm sorry we both called you this morning.
No, it's perfect.
I was in Kirksville and we were just...
Wait, do you plan on running again in the future? Or is that something you've ever thought about?
Well, the main reason that I'm not running right now is because at 48 years old, I have to focus on my family. My daughter's 10, so if I do my math right, by the time I'm about 58 years old, I don't think I have anything that's holding me back from going ahead and running. My wife is very supportive of what I do. I believe it's the right thing to do. I love my country and my state, but I have to put a priority in being a father. I mean, when you have a child, you have a responsibility, and I don't want to feel like I'm shirking that responsibility, even if I think what I'm doing is the right thing.